Today on Heart-Led Changemakers, I'm joined again by someone whose work feels like stepping into a different dimension of creativity, Michelle Stark. Michelle is the founder of Aleph Studio, where design, symbolism, and intuitive intelligence weave together to create work that feels alive, archetypal, and deeply human. For more than 15 years, Michelle has been helping entrepreneurs and leaders translate the unseen, the inner architecture, the identity shifts, the creative truth, all into visual form. Her work is part design, part psychology, part magic, and entirely transformative. In this conversation, we're going to be exploring creativity as a leadership technology, not as something decorative or optional, but as a way of seeing, sensing, and shaping reality. This is a conversation for anyone who feels the pressure of leadership and knows there's a deeper, more creative way to move through it. Michelle, welcome back to Heart-Led Changemakers.
Thank you so much, Marianne. That was such an amazing intro. Thank you for that. I
You're
think,
welcome. It's my favorite part of the show, really, when I'm introducing guests. I say it all the time, but it's my way of honoring who comes in to join me, and I can't wait to dive into all of this with you.
damn, love that. Love that. No, you're really speaking my language. And yeah, I think this will be a fun conversation. So thanks for having me.
Of course, we've known each other a little while, and you've been on the show before, and we talked a lot about your work and what led to this. But this is an extended part of that conversation. And so I'm thinking maybe let's dive into creativity as a stabilizer for leaders. So, to kick things off, my first question is entrepreneurs often think creativity is a luxury. We tend to opt in and opt out of posting, creating, updating our website, our identity, our wording. But I'm interested in your opinion about this. What's the cost when they treat it that way?
Yeah, okay. That sort of that question tickles me because entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship is like one of the most creative acts there is.
Yeah.
Like you're literally creating your own path through life. Like there's this lovely menu that you're given, and entrepreneurs have just gone, no, that's not for me. So just by nature of being an entrepreneur, you're absolutely creative and you're being creative every minute of every day. Likely, I would think it just doesn't look the way that you think it does. Um, so it's funny to think, oh, it's funny for me to think of entrepreneurs externalizing their creativity and thinking of it like it's social media posts or writing or podcasting or all of these like external expressions of it. They're like the larger, more obvious expressions of creativity, right? But they're doing these little mini creations exercises all throughout their day, every day, and on a macro level, just creating their life the way they want it to be. So I think that's really cute. But yeah, no, I see what you mean because there's a lot of nuts and bolts and a lot of function of everyday entrepreneurship. And that doesn't seem creative. It certainly doesn't seem magical sometimes. And it's just, there's so much that you just need to do every single day to run your business, let alone express yourself in your business. So yeah, I think I sort of know what the question is pointing at. Um, what's the cost of not investing in your creativity as an entrepreneur? I think the main thing is probably going to be, I mean, look, it's visibility, first of all, let's face it. If you're an entrepreneur who is a digital entrepreneur, and that relies on digital spaces to get clients or get known or get your message out there, you have to find novel ways these days of doing that. And so by thinking that's a little bit too hard or not worth your time, or perhaps thinking that you're not doing it well enough and not polished enough, um, then you're just missing out on opportunities to be seen, aren't you? So, I mean, visibility is the first cost, but I think maybe the underlying cost is for me anyway, and from what I see with people that I work with, not investing in creativity probably leads to stagnation. Like, and I mean by that, like you're in your business doing the day-to-day things, you forget that you can be expressive in your business. You forget why you maybe got into your business in the first place. You forget all of those secret little treasures that you've got that you can actually share that might make your business even better. But if you're not investing in that, you're just sort of on a treadmill and you're just going through the motions every day. And it might be working. And like, I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs are like this, and even non-creative type entrepreneurs that might just be good at seeing opportunities and just making those come to fruition. They might not necessarily be entirely creative, but if you're going along every day with the nuts and bolts, you don't have time to like play and experiment and those sorts, even if you're creating social media tiles, for example, you've got some great information to put across and you want to make them all pretty and put them on Instagram so that people read them and know how smart you are. There's a lot of pressure. You want to make it perfect, but oh, I can't do it well enough, so I'm just not going to do it. You have to sort of get past that. And I think like just the element of play and experimentation that you can bring into little things like that helps you it generates this momentum and this energy that sort of permeates energetically throughout your business, I guess. And if you want to stand out, or if you want to, um, I don't want to say get ahead. It's not necessarily getting out. If you want to differentiate yourself a little bit and potentially make your business even better, or go even further, or have more impact, you do need the creative play space, at least for a little while. So it's more fun and better for your creative brain. And I even dare say better for your business brain if you potentially stopped looking at the creative things that you have to do in your business, like websites and graphics and whatever else, not as strategy, like stop looking at them as strategy. Like we all know that they are, right? That's just like the waters that we swim in. Stop looking at a strategy, start looking at as a space to let your brain off the hook for a while, let your rational, everyday thinking mind step back, do something fun for a while, even if it's not good enough and you don't want to post it or you don't want to make that particular update on your website. What it's doing to your brain is going to yield some dividends down the track. I find that if I am in the clunky stages of business, if I step back and have a little bit of fun, have a bit of play, and just create, for fun with no pressure, sometimes just that stepping back puts your brain in a different state. So you go from that really concentrating, focusing, rational mind, you sort of bypass that and come out, behind it. This is how I visualize it anyway. You come out behind that, and that more relaxed, more open, more receptive state is where you get your breakthroughs for your business anyway. So you might have had a problem that you were stuck on last week and you've semi-given up on it and it was a bit too hard at the time. And then you take, perhaps like an hour out of your day to do some creative play. And all of a sudden in that moment, it's like, oh, got it. I know what I have to do now. It's just that separation, that bypassing of the rational mind. And I think creativity does that really well. And for me, who's a bit of a magic nerd, like magic does that really well as well. So yeah, it seems like a big cost to me. I don't want to stagnate in my business. I don't want to not be able to express myself in my business. I don't want to burn out. I don't want to be bored. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's my take on it.
I,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think we often see creativity as being outside of ourselves. So when it
Mm.
comes to creating website content or social media content or reels or whatever it is, imagery even, it's a task. It's not an energetic translation of who you are, what your brand is, that the story you are continuing to share. I am very intentional about the imagery that I use, even though I'm working with corporates and CEOs. The imagery, even though it might seem aesthetically pleasing, the symbolism in the imagery is telling the story of what I do without maybe people being conscious of it. And, I use Instagram as kind of like my little diary notes, if you will. It's like seeing a snapshot into my world. So it's a mix of, sort of facts and some pretty sort of aesthetics that give you the feel of the experience to work with me. But I think, and I have absolutely been one of these people, is you kind of get into a mode of, I've just got to get this done. And you automatically move out of play into task mode. And when you're in task mode, you're actually disconnected from that real expression. And then that's when you start doing some not great things, like relying on AI and other bits and pieces to start generating content for you rather than it being you. I mean, you can use it to restructure and to spruce up what you're writing. However, when you start leaning on it to dictate what your storytelling is and what your magic is, it starts to dilute and you start spinning around in circles, and then you start seeing that same content everywhere. And that is a big cost, because every time you do that, every time that happens, you're actually just spinning on the spot. You're not going backwards, you're spinning on the spot. And maybe even you are going backwards, because when people see it, they automatically recognize, I feel like I've read this before. This is generic. So this is obviously an AI style post. And I think people are leaning more into depth and care and intention and connection. As the world is moving, we're moving more into this. And it's not necessarily for you to be more personal. Like, as time has gone on, I've become incredibly private about my private life. I have even stopped sharing stories. I love clothes and outfits, and it's all part of my creativity and expression. But I've actually stopped doing all of that, because I am having the question, why am I choosing to do that? Why am I not just holding that energy sacred for me? And maybe not everyone needs that kind of access, but I can still let them into my world in a different way. And that's where, like, the intention about what you're creating, where that comes in. The other part that you were saying is, when you're stuck in a moment where you are creating something for your business, or you're trying to make a decision, creativity is such an amazing way to move your brain out of that block, to get that epiphany to come back. But we think that taking that break is actually just going to delay things. We put pressure on ourselves to rest for a start. We make ourselves feel guilty for resting, because, especially the overachievers and the people pleasing, that you automatically, you can't rest. So heaven forbid you take time to be creative. What do you even mean? And so I really love that you brought that up, because even 15 minutes of creativity, and that could be doodling, that could be free writing, that could be anything, really opens everything right up. And so my question to you, Michelle, is, when you are looking at your creativity, your mode of operation, what's one creative ritual or practice that keeps you anchored when things in your business get loud?
Yeah, I've got two. I've got two that I use almost day. One of them I use at least a few times a week. And it's really, really easy to do, and I will tell you what that is. But the one that I think, honestly, that has yielded the best results for me over time is, it's interesting to talk about in words with someone, because it's a magic ritual, and a lot of magic is like felt in a time and space, and it's a little bit hard to translate once you start using words and you try and put a description around it. It starts to get a bit clunky or sound a bit silly, or it loses a lot, right? But I think it would be remiss of me to at least like hint at something that really, really helps me, and I know that it helps others because it's based on metaphysical law and esoteric theory. Like there's some really good theory behind why this should work and why it does work, and it's been around for, geez, like 120 years or something. It was one of the foundational um, rituals of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Don't know if there's any magic nerds that listen to your podcast, but a lot of the magic that I use is sort of rooted in that, sort of lineage. But they have this wonderful ritual. It takes about 20-30 minutes. And it's essentially a way of moving, bless you, moving divine energy through the human body, right? And that has the effect of like clearing any energetic debris and helping you align to the higher current. And it was never ever something that was used for creativity. It's not for that, right? It's just for allowing, spirit to flow through, I guess. But, it's creativity and spirit are very, very closely aligned, and I think they're almost the same thing. God, source creates, so do we as humans. But yeah, so it's essentially there are certain energy centers in that tradition that are a little bit different to the chakras, and they just match up really, really well with the creative process and the different parts of the creative process. And so I've sort of I do that process as is. I do that ritual as is quite often, and it's just maintenance. It's just brilliant, energetic, creative channel maintenance is what I call it, what I refer to it as. And I have taught that in one of my workshops before. And I'm actually very soon to be launching a membership, and that forms basically the central mechanism of a monthly ritual that happens within that space, because it's so good and it just works. I just know it works. A lot of magic, is a bit, does it work? Does it not? This just works. um, and so, look, I do that. I do that a lot. If I don't do it for a few weeks, I feel it. Um, but that aside, I mean, that might not help anyone listening. But the thing that will, if you don't do this already, when I'm feeling lazy and I don't feel like doing a 20 or 30-minute meditation, laying on my back on the ground, arms and legs splayed, facing the ceiling, essentially. And it's just this brilliant way. I know it sounds so elementary and it sounds so basic, like, kids do it all the time, right? But esoterically, you think about it, you're laying on the floor, your heart space is like wide open. You're facing towards, the infinite, like the cosmic, the all, potentially the source of all the great creative ideas that are out there. And you're simultaneously connected with like almost every part of the back of your body to the ground as well. And so you're in this space of being really rooted and really supported and really held and calm, but you're also open to higher something, the beyond, as I like to call it, at the same time. And honestly, that's just such an easy thing to do. You can do it for 5 minutes. You can do it for 10, 20 minutes. I did it like 2 days ago when I was stuck on something. I was out of my mind. I was so frustrated. I just couldn't push through a certain creative block that I had in a project. It's driving me insane. And I'd worked myself into a bit of a tizzy about it, and I'm pushing through. I'm trying to get it right, trying to find the solution. Couldn't do it, and just went, "Oh, that's right. I have a tool for this." So I needed to just calm down. Essentially, I just did it to bring my body back to relaxation, so I could go and have dinner with my husband and be a nice wife. So I laid down. I did this, and honestly, within 30 seconds, the perfect solution just dropped in. So yeah, that I can't go past that. Simple, but fully freaking profound, actually, when you think about it. Do you have
Absolutely.
any? Do you have any like, go-tos?
I first of all, I do. The simplest things are often the best. I think
Yeah,
we put so much pressure on ourselves. If you've done any um, esoteric kind of work, spiritual work, if you've been, in workshops and things, sometimes it's easy to believe that you have to dedicate hours and hours to get into this flow and into this
yeah,
space. But After a while, you realize you just need to incorporate it like a normal human in your day to day. You don't always have, I actually hardly meditate now, hardly at all, but I'm present in a different way. And I do the same thing. I'll lie down flat on my back, like arms out open, sometimes with my legs up on the wall, just to make sure my lymphatic system and my nervous system is starting to really calm down. But it's often release for me. It's permission to come back to feeling safe, that things aren't spiraling out of control. Like I see a lot with leaders and entrepreneurs, we carry so much pressure that all of a sudden we feel like if we take a break, if we do anything outside of our work, the wheels are going to fall off, that we're losing momentum, that we're going to miss an opportunity, that people are going to be pissed off because we're taking longer than, we might need to, or whatever it is. But it is, that pause is so incredibly important, and lying flat on your back, letting your body feel that anchor, it automatically allows for surrender. And just 10 minutes, 10, not even 5, your body goes, oh, all right. And if you just stay there that little bit longer, if you can extend it out, your ideas will come, and your body softens in a way that allows for respite, and then everything starts to move again. So that is definitely one of my favorites. One of my other favorites is to shake, to stand and actually fully shake my body and to really get things moving. I tend to do that before I'm recording any reels. A lot of the reels that I'm using now are from my podcast. So, I'm already sort of in that mindset, but any ad hoc ones, I find that as soon as I hit that damn record button on my phone, I tighten, and all of a sudden I'm stiff and I'm thinking about my words. So they almost feel, even though what I'm saying isn't bad or wrong, it feels like I've got a barrier in front of me. I'm not, it's like a form of protection, and it's really annoying, and it's really hard to break out of. So I find the more I move my body beforehand, the easier it is for me to start speaking and to start presenting. And as time goes on, I'm having to do that less, because my body knows, okay, well, this is what we're doing. It's not so scary. We survived. Nothing bad happened. And so those are probably my two practical go-tos. If I'm in a mode as an entrepreneur, and this cycle happens a lot, because the more you want to expand out, the more sort of ups and downs of the wheel you have, right? Because as you expand the wheel to move forward, you have to hit the parts that are blocking, and the parts that are blocking, all of the shadow aspects. So it feels heavy, scary. There's some grief in there. There's some limiting beliefs that you have to face, and it's uncomfortable and horrible. So you feel like you're in the depths of despair. But when I'm in that mode to move, so to allow for the wheel to move again, I will do some of the heaviest spiritual things. So I will do some kinesiology, I'll do some EFT. I find when I'm ruminating, the EFT tapping really helps to break that cycle. So I'll use the same EFT, I'll do it a couple of times in a day, and then the next day I'll do it again. Even though I might be feeling better, I will do it again just as a reinforcement until it drops off and that issue is not bothering me. And so I'll do those two things, and then if I'm really stuck, then I will do some deeper meditation, or I'll go straight into full-blown creativity to allow for a complete and total disconnect from that reality. So I used to paint. I don't really paint so much now, but now my expression is in creating. I sew, so I create clothes, or I love interior design, so I'll rearrange my house and I'll change up the furniture. I've changed it so many times. If for friends and family that come over, they're like, your house is different again. Every time I come here, it's different. And that's just, I keep the energy moving, but I use it as a way of, aesthetically, it makes me feel comforted because I like the way that it looks, but I've also had time to stop the ruminating. And so they're practical things. If I wanted to go even deeper, like when I had a bath, I'd, throw myself in the bath and meditate in there. And I'd, do all the essential oils and the sea salt and the music and all the things. I don't have a bath now. So I've just adapted. But I think as the more work you do on yourself, the less you need to do those things in its intensity, because you're doing it in a day-to-day, so you can move that little bit faster. And that's
Yes.
what I teach my clients. How do you regulate yourself, your nervous system? How are you releasing the pressure so that you're not ruminating, so that your decision making is clear, so that you can just move with complete and total ease, and you're not having to dedicate an hour every day to get into that mode. It's just a natural, it's like habitual, it's just your natural way of being.
Like muscle memory.
Yeah, like muscle memory. And so you walk into rooms, like I went, I was in a workshop the other day, and I walked in and people just automatically assume you're very confident and you've got your shit sorted out. When really I was feeling like I didn't want to be there. I didn't, because I knew it was going to stretch my nervous system and capacity, and I was going to have a breakthrough. I could feel it brewing. But because you're regulating, you automatically seem and feel different to the people around you without even trying. So for me, even though
Yes.
I wasn't feeling great, they thought that I was regulated, normal, and super confident. And it's like, well, that's a handy little trick to have.
Yes.
Especially when you're networking or when you're presenting or you're pitching and you're working with other professionals. It's a really handy thing to do, and the more you lean into it, the better it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gives you that edge too, doesn't it? Because in that
Absolutely.
situation, like even though you were feeling, a little bit unsure and a little bit, scared because it's going to stretch you, you going into that and regulating yourself, even though you're still feeling a little bit dysregulated compared to a lot of the other people in the room, you are highly regulated and highly calm and highly confident. So even it's a context thing. So you by yourself at home might be feeling yeah, there's no one to mirror back to you. The success you're having, I guess, regulating yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, we all want confidence and calm in our leaders.
Yeah.
Like, we need that. We need that for stability. We're not going to buy into or follow anyone that
Yeah.
doesn't have that regulation. So it really is one of those little secret edges, I think, for anyone that's in any leadership position. And I mean, with the people that you and I work with, we probably work with people that are very much already in that sort of work and open to that sort of thing.
Mm.
We have to remember sometimes that probably 70-80% of the population, especially in the business world, possibly don't have that sort of understanding, that deeper level of that energetic understanding. And therefore they don't have that self-awareness. So they they put on a persona, they put on
Mm.
confidence, they perform confidence, and they perform calm, but there's just something a little bit unmatched about that.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, it's not quite right next to someone that actually um, is it, calm in their interior, like calm and steady in their interior. That's a completely different feeling with people, isn't it? Like you can
Yeah.
absolutely tell that out there in the world. Oh man, and it doesn't mean that you've got to be, spiritual and into all of the inner work and the interior development and the personal
Mm-hmm.
development. Some people just have it totally naturally. Like I've
Yeah.
got a couple of friends that are just they're so chill. They don't care. And they're just doing, like everyday jobs, like 9 to 5 jobs. They don't
Mm.
have this tension inside them to try and work and do more and be more in the world, like some
Yeah.
of us strangely do. But man, it's contagious. You love spending time with those people, don't you? Because it's just
Yeah.
they're so
Of
Yeah.
course. And with the CEOs that I work with, if they're carrying, and I speak about this a lot, if they're carrying an internal pressure and on
Mm.
the outside they're positioning and performing confidence, people can feel it. The whole premise of my work is people can feel when you're carrying more, and instead of
Yeah.
taking helping and taking on some of that load, they actually lean in and put even more pressure on the CEO. So they're actually making things worse than what it was before. And the interesting thing is it breaks trust, because when you say it's all fine, but they can feel you're not fine,
Mm.
even though you're confident, when they can feel it, and you don't have to be spiritual, instinctually we all know when something feels off,
That's right.
they it starts to break the trust. And when you start to break the trust, everyone then goes into risk assessment. And when they're in risk assessment, everyone's on high alert. So automatically they're in, okay, so how do I need to protect myself? And all of a sudden, instead of working together, you've created all these individual silos, which is really
Yeah.
unhelpful. That's what breaks culture. And so it's not just the CEO, it's all the leaders underneath that who are holding pressure that's coming top down. um you know there a lot of large organizations are under incredible pressure to achieve KPIs and produce results and all of those things, but the leaders aren't managing the pressure and the load that they're carrying. And so as a result, the teams feel that tightening, they feel the tension, they feel it, even though the language and the words are, we're working as a team, let's do this, it doesn't feel that way. And it's in the
Yeah.
unspoken and the unspoken dynamics that my work exists. Like I'm the step that helps to break those patterns and to rebuild. You can have incredible emotional intelligence and self-awareness and still be feeling that tightening, because you don't understand where that pattern is coming from. The pattern might be active in your present environment, but it's happening because of other incidents that are reminding you of this. So instead of it feeling this big, it feels like that. And so I help people see where they're hooked on other old stories, and we remove
Mm.
it so the pressure releases and they can avoid making mistakes that weren't necessary, and they can feel a freedom in the way they're communicating, in the way that they're working, and they're not second guessing, they're not carrying this overwhelm and this emotional load unnecessarily. And so the tools, and this is what I love about how our work is similar in its philosophy, is you can embody what you want to create, and
Mm.
nothing is outside of you,
Yeah.
everything is in. And so even in large organizations, that is an extension of you. If you are the head of an organization or your own business, large or small, that is an expression and an extension of your energy and your capacity. And so it's how you manage that and how you resource and how you support yourself that absolutely needs to be the priority. And I think as where the world is moving, that's going to get more and more prominent. And that's why I wanted to bring this conversation to the podcast, because I think it's easy to think about creativity as like something fun to do. When we were
Yeah,
kids, it was fun to
exactly.
do. But it's like, oh,
Yeah.
that's fun. That's a nice to have. But it's actually, that's not it, because it is a tool that you can use to really deepen your communication, your connection, not only to your business, but to the people that you're serving as well.
Mm, yeah, true, true. Yeah, I like how you say that. And it's interesting. I think every time every time we speak, which is very regularly, it would be nice to talk more, let's chat more. But every time we speak, I'm actually quite astounded at the overlap between both of our work.
Yeah.
Um, we work with very different people and in very different ways, but there is quite a significant overlap there. And even hearing you use some of the terminology there, like, being able to self-resource in terms of my in terms of my creative clients, the mentoring clients that I have, and even people that are coming to workshops, it's the one of the big things that they're finding, I think, the most helpful is remembering that they have a place deep inside them that is strong and steady and accessible
Yep.
and wise and can give them the guidance that they need. Like in all of the creative confusion, and man, if there's one thing that's attached to the creative journey, like if you're creative in inverted commas, there's a lot of confusion that
Yeah.
comes with that. You've got a big, fuzzy, multi-directional, multi-dimensional brain, and it's sometimes really, really difficult to know what direction to go in. Um, and so, your people would potentially have that as decision making
Mm,
and leading. And mine would have that as, well, which idea do I follow? Like, what do I give my attention to? And it's surprising how in the right time and space that how easy it actually is, right, to connect with that. And
mm,
it's a very specific feeling in the body also. And once you have contact with that, like once you know and you've felt it, you know when you're off, and you know when you're in that state and you're receiving some guidance from the beyond. For example, let's talk about a magic ritual in one of my workshops. You're making that contact because you felt that in your body, and it's a very
mm.
specific, strong, steady, centered, incredible feeling. That's your discernment point,
Yeah.
because it gets a little bit slippery out there in the imaginal realm, in the realms that I play in terms of magic. But that's the one steadiness that you can always come back to. And people, there's not a lot of places in the world in modern life that like cultivate that. Most
Yeah.
people know it as a thing and know it as a concept, as an idea, but there just aren't spaces available really where you can come back to that. Or maybe there are in a body sense, like, there's like lots of breath work workshops and sound healing and all that sort of thing at the moment. And on a somatic body level, yeah, there are ways to come back to that. But there's another level of that as well that's not only centered in your body. And that's sort of, it's, how do I explain this? It's sort of, for me, it's centered in the mind.
Yeah.
There's a different level of it. And if you're a creative, you spend a lot of time up there.
Mm,
So, maybe if you're the type of creative who's just pure flowing expression and you paint and sculpt and or dance or perform, like that's coming through your body. That's a very specific creative expression and creative experience. The people I find that I work with the most and that come to me the most are the ones that have creative minds. They've got really, really big creative minds. And even though like mind and body is, so connected, it's also a different, you can have the body connection and feeling grounded in your core, in your body, but your mind still isn't quite there yet.
yeah.
And so I think what I like to explore with my people is using the mind and using the imagination to actually explore those sorts of places and find wisdom from the beyond, from the gap in the interface,
Yeah.
so that they can have those two touch points. And if you
Yeah.
get the mind and the body online at the same time, like, whew, you're off. You know the direction to go, and you just go gangbusters in that direction because that's the calling. Like that's the direction. That's the neon flashing sign if you're confused about where to go.
Yeah,
So it's a good touchstone.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
but also, I was in a workshop a couple of years ago, and it was all about connecting to your animal totem archetype for your business. And that
Mm.
was amazing. Oh, I mean, just that in and of itself, like really allowing yourself to lean into the what your business is trying to teach you, why it's there, how it wants to be expressed, how it wants to be seen, how it wants to teach you about what's possible in the infinite, and that's a really great place to anchor into, especially when you're feeling a lot of pressure and you're feeling stressed. I'm wondering, from your perspective, when you're working with entrepreneurs, what tells you immediately that they're creating from pressure, or if they're creating from truth?
Mm. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna have to think back a little bit, for this question, because I must say where I'm at now with the people that do tend to come to me for my design work now, they're pretty much in alignment with where they're meant to be and with their own truth. They've done
Yeah.
a lot of the work to get there. And they're now at a place where they've, in a state of mastery, with their work, and now it's time to step forward and share it. So they're in a really good space. But, prior to that, and even seeing other people that, just in the marketplace, so to speak, it's an energy, isn't it? Like and like you said, even if you're not like spiritually inclined, it's instinctual. Like as a
Mm.
human animal, you can feel that. But for me, the way that it sort of comes across and the way that I see it and perceive it is that um, there's a weird detachment. And you touched on it before when you said something. It's like when you're preparing for reels and you shake your body and you got to get into that core because you don't want the wall up.
Yeah.
And if there's, yeah, so what I notice in people, if there's a misalignment between like them working from pressure and them working from truth, working from pressure puts a wall up. It's really hard to it's hard to tell. You don't know that you're doing it. It's a very subtle thing. And if you're energy sensitive, like but even if you're an instinctual human being that works with other humans all the time, you're going to know, and you're not going to be able to put your finger on it necessarily.
Yep.
But there's just a detachment. You can't quite break through into like the authentic core.
Mm.
Um, yeah, does that make sense? That's how I have seen it in people in the past and how I see different people out there now. And I just see it as a wall. And all we want to do as humans is break through that wall and be heart to heart,
Yeah.
um, or at least mind to mind, and connect. You just want to or connect with an actual authentic person, even if you're a mess. Yeah, and so when you're moving from pressure, I guess the body just constricts a little bit and
Mm.
the mind constricts. Everything energetically just goes, "Ugh,"
Yeah.
and bang, up goes the wall. So yeah, that's how it seems to me. That's how I perceive it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And it is your body tells the story. And again, even even if it's not conscious, where you're not like super stiff, your
Yeah.
body is there's like it's like a micro physical that is happening, that I mean, you'd have to be paying a lot of attention, but when you're scrolling, when you've got people who are being fluid and they're talking freely, and then you come across another video where someone is speaking, and I'm definitely have been one of these people, as I expressed, your body sort of is tight. You don't seem like your normal relaxed self in person. I'm quite animated. I use my hands a lot. On the podcast, I'm sort of free to do that. But when you're recording, like I said, when I was finding myself recording, when I was feeling pressure to perform and speak well and whatever else, I could feel that tightness. And I think it's like a really good thing for our listeners to start thinking about, no matter what your circumstances or your environment, whether it's going to a family event, or you're in a meeting, or whatever it is, if you're recording for socials or whatever, just pay attention to how your body actually feels. Like, just be present with yourself first, and think about not the stress of what you're going to do, but just think about how is your body responding in that moment. And I love that. That's the same for what you're seeing, is the same for me, and that's because it's universal. That feeling, that response, absolutely is. But then when you're working from a place of truth, there's a knowing that creates a solidness within you. It is, you are sure, you know that you're safe. You know that you are going to be able to handle whatever comes. And whether it's messy or whether it's, perfect in inverted commas, it doesn't really matter. Your body just trusts. And then all of a sudden, the people who are interacting with you, they again, that they know, they feel it. And so I really love that. Even though our work is different, again, these are the same, levels, the same expressions, the same experiences that leaders are having. And that leads me to my next question. I've got so many, Michelle. When, when you are seeing people redesign their identity, right? This is such a big thing because as entrepreneurs, your business is growing and you're uncovering pieces, more and more pieces of you and your work and the way you want to be of service, that it changes. And
Yeah.
you mentioned before you've got clients who come to you now where they've sort of mastered what they're doing, and so they're ready for a redesign and a new identity. So how do you approach that? Like what's the thing that needs to change first?
Ooh, 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 ooh. I could go in so many directions with this question. Let me decide which tendril to pull on. Um, what I feel like I want to point to is even it's interesting because even these people that are obviously brilliant and obviously know in themselves that they've reached a level of their work where they can now lead, but they still come to me and they still haven't had that mirrored to them. And so they know there's something there, or they suspect strongly that there's something there and that they've reached this level and now's the time. It's just this sort of inner nudge or something guiding them, but they still don't know the extent of it. They just know that change is brewing and change is on the horizon, and there's a stepping up that I now need to do.
Mm.
And so they come to me and I see them so clearly. And there's quite a process that I go into when I'm branding someone or a business. And we do a lot of deep diving. And what actually happens is that it's not something I mean to do this way, but this is the feedback that I get after every session. It's just like I am holding up a big, big, big mirror to these people where suddenly they're seeing their own brilliance that they suspected, but they actually weren't positively sure about. Is this something that maybe I just think I'm good at? Is this something that only I'm interested in and no one else is going to care? But there's something there. And I tell you, one of the best things I ever did for my business, and talk about following your intuition in business, best thing I ever did was like 2 years into having Aleph Studio. And, I was doing pretty mainstream stuff at that stage. Like I still had clients from, the commercial corporate world. And with branding, I've always been really interested in psychology and specifically depth psychology and specifically Carl Jung. I just love his take on things and his work with the collective unconscious and archetypes and symbol. And so I'm sitting there one day and I'm like, yeah, there's something in this for branding. There's something in this that's going to help me be able to communicate a brand in a way that's going to sort of hit people in the feels and they're not going to know why. Like I just have this sense that's a thing that we can do here with some really good psychological strategy. And so I was talking to a few people that I knew about it, and they're like, it sounds a bit weird. Don't really know if that's going to work. Did it anyway. And so what now this now forms the basis, like the foundation of my brand strategy with people. And it's very simple. I give them a really targeted questionnaire, and by their answers, archetypes speak to me through their answers. And so I'm working with this system of 72 archetypes. And the thing with archetypes is that we all understand them implicitly anyway as humans because they're based on, psychological and mythological templates that we hold, as the human coding, right? And so not only does it allow me to um, communicate something cohesively, but the audience then sees that, and somewhere deep down intuitively they know what they're looking at. They recognize it because part of that lives also in them because all of the archetypes live within us, right? um, and so I did it as a strategic move purely to make my job more targeted and more strategic and to get a better outcome for my clients. But the really cool thing that happened is that by me reflecting the archetypes back to the client, it's like they were seeing themselves in a whole new light. Like that, some of that it had occurred to them, but as just a passing sort of wishy-washy feeling. But to have some structure and some wording put around that, even before the graphics happen, even in that very first strategy session, that takes 90 minutes, and this is where we go through what I perceive their archetype mix to be. That's everyone's favorite part of the whole project. It's
Yeah.
like they could pay me all the money and just come away from that 90-minute session and maybe make their own graphics. I don't know, because it's so juicy what we get to
Yeah.
in that little part of it. And so, yeah, having that mirrored back to them now gives them that confidence and that empowerment and that boldness and that recognition, which we don't get freely,
Yeah.
do we? I mean, the things that we know and the things that we suspect and feel deep down, there's not really a lot of mirrors out there in the world for us to go, oh no, I see that. You're really good at that. Go do that. Like, wouldn't
Yeah.
we all just love that? I know I would have loved that throughout my entire life and probably even still now. I feel like I've got that central pillar quite strong these days, so I sort of know where to go. But yeah, having them being able to see that in a framework that's really easy to digest, it can be life changing. Like I've spoken to clients a few years post the experience of going through that, and those archetypes are still top of mind when they're making social media content or deciding how to dress that day in their business or how their copywriting sounds or yeah, it's nice to have someone like truly see you. If you're a multifaceted, multidimensional
Yeah.
human,
Yeah.
you're too hard for the most people to understand, and so you sort of become a little bit invisible. Have you found that?
Absolutely. And you taken the
Yeah.
words out of my mouth. I was going to say
Yeah.
it's being seen with so much depth that gives you incredible respite. You like your
Mm.
soul, it takes a big sigh. And as entrepreneurs, we're working in silos so much, even when we're facilitating groups and all sorts of different bits and pieces, you are still your own cheerleader. You're still the one that's, you know, creating and strategizing and so forth. So to have someone see you so deeply and see the absolute magic and truth of you is a big is such a gift, but it's such a big part of the identity shift. And it's I feel like it's an anchor point for people who are moving into that expansion too. I feel privileged and very lucky that I've got people like yourself in my network and close by who will occasionally slide into my DMs and say, I see you there. I see this change. I see this transformation, even though I haven't spoken about it out loud. Even in those little micros, you're like, oh wow, okay, I'm not talking into the void and into the abyss. But for this work, when you're shifting your brand, when you're in that expansion, to be held and to be seen in a multitude of different ways, in the complexity that we are as individuals and not as a cardboard cutout,
Yeah.
It really is such a beautiful gift that you give your clients. And when you see the graphics, like I stop in my tracks every time you launch a brand and you announce a new brand for a client that you've worked with. I'm dead in my tracks, and all of a sudden I'm like, is mine? Do I need to rejig this? Like I automatically I'm like, oh, because you can, it's there. It is footprint that these entrepreneurs are leaving as part of their legacy. And it is just, yeah, it's brilliant, Michelle. It's just brilliant.
Mm, I love that. Thank you very much. I fully believe that it's the archetypal strategy at work there,
Yeah.
because you can create something that covers a lot of bases and that looks pretty,
Yeah.
and but you've got to have clarity of message, right? And so
Yeah.
if you can just hone in and boil down your gravy to the reduction in chef's terms, I think. The reduction is the sweet spot. The reduction is where the power is, right? So it's like it's core essence. And I think that's what the archetypes do very well. They just seem to
Yeah.
cut straight to the heart of things. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you
So
can
yeah,
waste a lot
thank
of
that's
time avoiding your own archetype. I know I've been in those circumstances.
oh
I was avoiding putting out there in basic terms what I do because I didn't think that it was it
yeah.
was worthy of it. And so when I just actually got over myself and just let myself share that I see patterns and I help people remove them, that's the foundation
Yeah.
of what I do. I can see patterns very clearly that other people can't see. That's what's natural for me. And with my experience, it's a combination of all of those skills. But when I simplified it and let that come to the surface,
Mm.
everything just felt so much easier. When I'm talking to people that I meet, I can talk about my work with marbles in my mouth and I still get my
Yeah.
message across with ease. Whereas before,
Yeah.
that piece, there was just like this piece that just, it wasn't, even though aesthetically everything looked good, it was like the language around it that I couldn't quite, it didn't, there was a, it just, it was this piece that it looked like it fit, but it didn't. And so when I realized I actually just didn't even need that piece, I could just let
Yeah.
it be in its simplified version, didn't need to make it more complex. I could just be real about it.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
it's like, oh, well, yeah, of course. Yeah, this is what I do. And it is true. I'm in acceptance of it. And so the people that I communicate it to are in acceptance of it as well. And
Yeah.
absolutely, it's left of center. But I've realized the storytelling part of it is where the magic is for me. And the more that I lean into the storytelling rather than explaining, that shift. But when you know the archetype, when you understand, absolutely, we uncover more and more layers. And as entrepreneurs, especially, that journey is never ending. And even this morning, you were saying about you got to get down to, I can't remember the wording that you used, but you got to get down to like the lower layers.
Mm.
I heard someone really clever this morning say, energetically, right now we need when you think about soup, we need to like remove some of the juice to come down to
Yeah.
what, like the sediment, like
Yeah.
what is the energy, what is the piece here that wants to be expressed. We don't need
Yeah.
all of this extra. We just need to sip it down. And I love that you brought that in. But it's good
Yeah. Well,
confirmation.
yeah, absolutely. And like, let's be real, the way that we're marketing our businesses at the moment with
Mm,
all of the noise of like
yeah,
social media and algorithms and all of that sort of thing, like people are scrolling at a million miles an hour.
yeah,
They don't want any ambiguity in messaging.
yeah,
Like they just don't have time for that shit.
yeah, yeah,
Just tell me
yeah,
what you do. Just tell me what you do and who you do it for and exactly what you do so that I know what I'm spending my money on. Like
yeah,
that, there is that sense of urgency for a lot of people out there. And
yeah.
that doesn't have to be everyone's strategy in marketing, but man, that is a truth. That is a marketing truth and one that I've
Mm.
been avoiding for a very long time and one that I've been resting on graphics for a very long time. And I tell you what, talk about the journey, the entrepreneurial journey. and how it pushes you beyond where you would ordinarily be comfortable going.
Yeah.
There's a big edge for me at the moment around getting my messaging right, because obviously, the design stuff, I've been doing that for 15 years. I know how to communicate that to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And I've never had to use my words to describe what I do, because I just share my work and there's a resonance there and people feel it. But now that I'm doing this other stream of my business, which is the more sharing more of the magic, all of the things that make me me as a creator, and all of my secrets from my creative journey, so to speak, now that I'm putting them out there and now that I'm doing workshops and doing mentoring, no one knows that I'm doing that. It's brand new. I need to communicate that to people. And this is where I am stumbling big time at the moment, because I can't, I'm getting there. I'm slowly getting there, but I just can't quite find the words. Every time I think I find the perfect words to explain the sediment and the core of what I'm doing as
Mm.
simply as possible, it just slips out of my hands. And it's funny, there's, an archetype that I work with is like the god Thoth, or Mercury,
Yeah.
and he's so slippery and he's the trickster, right? And I have him in my field so often, like, and I think I've got it, this is it. And I type it into, I've got a little marketing Bible document in my Google Docs with all my key messaging points and all the strategy that I'm trying so hard to nail. And I've got it. And then 2 days later, I'll read it and just think, that doesn't work. A little trickster Mercury's on my shoulder, like, you can't catch me. So yeah, that's a really difficult thing for me at the moment, just to be honest. Like, people tend to look at um, certain creators, and especially if you see my work online, a lot of people say to me that they just assume that I've got it all together. I am on a misty mountaintop creating in a studio full of magic and sunbeams and sparkles and and like, no, 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 it's not like that, man. It's not like that. Like, creativity and entrepreneurship are
Yeah.
hard. It's not fun most of the time. It's
Yeah.
absolutely worth it and it's absolutely fulfilling. But no, no, it's a freaking mess a lot of the time. It's
Yeah.
really, really hard. I think we all need to acknowledge that for anyone listening. And if that sort of that road is calling to you, don't expect it to be easy. It's going to bring up all of your limiting beliefs and all of your insecurities and all of your self-doubt and all of your shadows. It's an initiatory path. It is a sacred initiatory path into becoming your fully expressed version of yourself. It's sacred, isn't it? It's no mean feat.
Yeah. I mean, I think the initiation feels daily, sometimes multiple times daily. And we make it look easy. That's part of the problem. We actually make it look easy, but it is not. When you are working at this level with this amount of depth, with this intensity and care and thoughtfulness and intention, this is grueling. It all you're seeing the end result. You're not seeing, when we're lying on the ground in a fetal position, or lying on the ground going, I need a fuck, you're not thinking, like, you don't see. I don't hit record, because that's the last thing I want to do, is record myself crying or stressed out. Like, that's not helpful. That,
No,
but people assume that doesn't happen, but that is what is happening on a day to day. I think when I speak to people, and sometimes even my family, they're confused as to the fact that I feel incredibly challenged regularly, and that when I was saying I didn't feel ready to step into public speaking until now, and that kind of thing, they look at me like I'm some sort of weirdo. They don't understand what I'm talking about, because they see the podcast, they see these little clips, so they think it's all like, it's just like, oh no, she's just able to do that. No, absolutely not. And it's not. I haven't felt that anyone really wants to hear what I've got to say, which is ridiculous. But that's what's happening. And so they look at me like, what? Because the outside, the perception is different from what is really happening. But as entrepreneurs, this is what is normal. And so people either share too much of this side of things in order to create connection, but you're actually just trauma bonding with people, or they're not showing it at all. And for me, when I think about my clients, I can share stories about other clients. They don't need to hear my shenanigans necessarily in person when we work in an intimate capacity. So I might share some of my stories with them, but for the most part, I'm focused on them. They don't need any of the external things. And then there's the other part, and I kind of want to sort of just bring this to the surface as well. You know, my background is in marketing and strategy. So I've got all the words. I've got a million different words. I can say things in a million different ways, really clever, the blah, blah, blahs and the blah, blah, blahs. But now, and I've changed the way that I've been writing in so many different ways. Now I just speak factually about what is real. I've witnessed and learned that I don't need to prove that I'm clever. I have a skill set. It is what it is. No, there's nothing that I need to prove in any way, shape, or form. So I can just talk like a normal human being about normal human being things in this way. So that, and it doesn't mean it's not refined, but it doesn't need to be corporate stiff. Then there's the other part. When you understand your clients, sometimes what you do, it just can't be what is being dictated and sprouted on social media, for example, with people who are telling you how to position yourself and how to, create funnels and the email list and the blah, blah, blah. I don't have group containers. My work is one-on-one, or I'm working within an organization and I'm working with the entire organization as a whole and teams. That's a different thing. But my clients are CEOs. And CEOs at a super high level are not commenting on any posts. They're like incognito. They're on social media, but they're not participating. They're not liking. They're not commenting. They're not resharing. They're not even posting at all. They haven't got time for that, and they don't want to. And they're holding themselves in that private way, very similar to what I'm doing, right? Although I'm posting about my work because they need to know I exist. However, I've got the same, but I've realized I'm actually needing to do the same for myself. I don't need to share that's got nothing to do with my work. My private life is mine. So when I, you're being, to get more likes and to see how many people are viewing and listening and the blah, blah, blahs, I don't care about that, because my audience are a niche, because not every CEO wants to do this work. Not every CEO is ready to do this work, or to hear what I've got to say, or to want to make those changes, or to stop creating chaos. And it's a very small niche. Knowing that, and knowing those people so well, their archetypes, their profile, the way where they are and where they're not, and how they interact, likes I couldn't give an F about. Sometimes my ego brain is like, I see other people posting sort of similar-ish kind of content, not with the same depth, similar-ish kind of content. And I see people interacting over there, and I get incredibly frustrated. And then I have to talk myself down and remember the truth. Then my work is not the same. And also I purposely bring a truthful, confronting facts about what is happening, and that no one's going to put their hand up and say, oh yeah, that's me, I'm creating chaos over here. Oh yeah, that's me, I'm not holding it together. Like, no way. And my clients are men, so even more so, they are going to be under the radar until they reach out to me, and then that's it. And even then, everything is confidential, highly confidential. So I can't even express that this is my client. I can't even put the logos up on my website. It's just, it's not allowed. I'm literally, that is not how this works, but I've set my business up. But then when you're being bombarded that you have to be like this and you have to do it like this, you've got to create your own way. And so with your work, Michelle, you got to think about the entrepreneurs with the depth that they have. They're being called to you because they've already got that. They're ready to be seen and it's ready to be expressed. Those people need to feel those that language needs to be woven to that rather than the mainstream. So anything that you're already seeing that doesn't even fit you, like
Exactly.
with the branding that you create, that like that to me is I haven't seen anything that I could say, oh, I've seen person A. I think some of this might be able to help with your language. Nah, like this is like something that has to unlock in you. Like there's just no other way around it.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
done many, many, many workshops, courses, work with a lot of different mentors who have said that you need to do it like this. This is the way. And I can tell you it delayed things significantly because I wasn't trusting my own wisdom and I wasn't trusting that my communication, my true expression, that clear basic expression of what I do was enough. And when I removed
Yeah.
it, everything started to open. And so for you, like I said, your entrepreneurs have got so much depth. What you're creating for them has. So my wisdom to you is lean into that some more because it's that's what's going to feel easy for you. And that's the key,
Mm.
isn't it? It's like, why am I making this harder than it has to be? Why am I
Yeah.
trying to make things harder than it has to be? It doesn't.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And there's this really funny line with this fine line that you walk with being, I think the type of creatives that both of us are, right? Like you have background in marketing, I've got background in design. They are two very creative jobs, but they straddle both worlds. They straddle creative and they straddle commercial.
Yeah.
And that's a really unique road, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
you're always got a commercial hat on, and you should as a business person, trying to communicate depthy, creative, different, multi-dimensional
Mm,
ideas. And
yeah.
so, of course, you've always got this commercial hat on, and you always want to do something at a professional level and at a refined level. And you can't just put your raw material out there. It's got to have a certain refinement to it. But when is too much refining?
Yeah.
This is another thing that I see mentoring clients that I work with getting stuck in the refining stage. And look, if there was one of the stages of the creative process that I get stuck in the most, yeah, it's the refining stage. There's just, you're always trying to make it a little bit better, a little bit better. But yeah, like you said, when I find, like, I've been writing a little bit of new website copy recently. And man, I had a train trip, a 4 hour train trip up to see my parents like a few weeks ago. I spent 4 hours trying to write. I'm so embarrassed to say this. I took 4 hours trying to write what was essentially 3 paragraphs for a landing page. And that's even with the help of AI. Nothing was landing, nothing was right. It was
Yep.
just, it was absolutely horrible. And I got off the train. I had to catch like another short train to where I was going. And I was just so tired and so over it. I was just sitting there. And suddenly I just felt like a bit of poetry come forth. And I just typed it into my little notes app like you do. And I realized just that pure expression that came through was exactly the hero copy
Yeah.
on the sales page that I wanted. And it's like, yeah, you don't, there are all these parameters that the gurus tell you need to be fitting your work into and you need to be fitting your messaging into. And it's
Yeah.
like almost, and we're ambitious souls, man. We want our work to reach people. Like we know it can have an impact. So of course we want to take on as much advice and learn as much as we can to make that happen, make that more likely to happen. And there is, you sort of have to do that. You have to be
Yeah.
striving for that and have to be learning. But yeah, when the paradox is, of course, that yeah, you're just mindlessly drifting on a train somewhere one day, and the perfect sales copy just comes through in a completely unexpected manner. So I'm trusting that more now.
Mm.
And I'm finding that what I was really struggling with social media forever is finding a way to sort of promote and sell my work without promoting and selling my work, sort
Yeah.
of thing. So I want it to just be a sharing. And I realized that one of my social media pillars is just it's pure recognition. It's just me like going through an everyday thought process, something that's hit me in the heart and hit me in the feels, and just writing about that in a creative way that makes me feel good, that makes me feel a little bit better about something. And then I share it, and that's the type of thing that makes people go, yes, that, me too. And like likes don't convert. Like if you want to talk about sales, like likes don't convert into sales. Like it's just not a thing these days. No one likes on Instagram really. And if they think they're being sold to, it's like they're not even going to touch it. But what I'm thinking is that if I can just reach people with things like that, then maybe they just might be a little bit more interested in my world
Yeah. Yeah.
potentially. But even if they're not, it's so nice to actually just connect on that way with other people. I've never been able to do that on social media before. That's not just with my graphics.
Yeah.
So to be able to use my words, which is, a new thing that I'm playing with creatively at the moment, it's really nice. And yeah, I think it's having, a good impact marketing as well, just by taking the marketing hat off. The
Yeah,
paradox.
absolutely. I feel the same way, and I think the words, as you're growing, as you're expanding, the words will you'll massage it. It will keep moving, but the premise of connection is just speak like you would if you were already in a relationship with them. And
Mm.
that was, I think that's been the hardest piece for me, to move out of structured marketing, be professional and be corporate and give the facts. And I've slowly given myself permission to move out of that space, and you know you were saying, 4 hours to write 3 paragraphs. The amount of rewrites I have done to my website, and the ideas around different podcasts, the solo ones, I can't even. I think we'd be at 100 edits, at least 100, probably more than that, Michelle. And
Sure.
to someone, if someone was stalking me, they'd be like, "She's updated her website again," and it's like an obsession, to make sure that it is expressed in its truth. But I
Yeah.
just wanted to say something to the audience that's really important, that came through when you were speaking, Michelle, is I really encourage all of our listeners to think about who they're getting advice from. Because if you're getting advice from someone who is not walking the path of creativity and magic, and is delving into that space where they're taking themselves into the underworld and into their shadow, how are you taking what that advice that they're giving you is never going to be a match for your business. Step one, think about
Exactly.
where they are at, really, and the where they're positioned, the work that they've done on themselves. Like, are they really in the truth of, are they in the same park as you? You and I are in the
Are
same
they on the
park.
same
We
frequency?
speak the same language. We have a lot of, similar philosophy. We honor our spirit and our body and our minds in the same way. It's aligned. We know we're not afraid to see the sticky parts. But the person who's giving you that information, if they've done none of that work, they don't believe in any of that, that is not the person to take advice from, no matter how amazing the sales is about. You can have, all of these, make 100K, da 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 da. Like, no, absolutely not. No, I don't want to hear any of that. That makes me
Yeah.
feel sick, and so I just want to make people pause, who's listening, to say, think about where you're getting your information, and do you want to repeat that as a cycle for yourself? And I've said that with business leaders as well. When you're listening to people speak, when you are paying to go to conferences, the people who are giving you advice are those people, their wisdom, their experience, the impact that they've had on this world. Is this the wisdom that you want to bring into your workplace? Is this what you want to recreate? Like, spend some time thinking about that. And I think we often just go to things and do things and take things in and digest things that really don't belong with us at all. But it's a distraction. And as entrepreneurs, we are very easily distracted. There is absolutely no question about that. We go round and round on a little merry-go-round to avoid the hard thing, you know. So
Yeah.
you know that's the piece that I think is really important, and I think it's really essential that we're more mindful about that than anything else, because then we're giving ourselves permission to write some poetry and use that as our landing page. I don't know a single marketing person out there that would recommend that to you, Michelle. I haven't.
Exactly.
That's not in the mass. Do you know what I mean? You're never going to find it out there. Do you know?
Yeah,
But when you give
no.
yourself permission to just be creative and to let it come through, it's like, oh, hey, whoa. You know, I mean, even for me, the other day, I came up with a genius idea to better connect with CEOs out there. Genius. And had I not just allowed myself to explore and to be with it and to just face the fact that I didn't like, there was an action that I didn't really want to take, when I just let it be simple, it all just came about. Everything, all the language, everything. It was just absolute ease. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
all right, well, then now I can do this task on the regular and it doesn't feel hard to do. I'm just allowing that truth and that expression. And if I was one of your clients, Michelle, or potential client, and I saw some poetry on the landing page, absolutely, I'd be in straight away. I'd be like, oh, well, she gets it. She knows.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's not
she
a
gets it.
gimmick.
Exactly.
You're not writing it to be a gimmick. Do you know what I mean? It is just you. Of course, that's just an arm of your expression. And I think we all need to lean into that more, no matter what positions
Yeah,
we're in. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Exactly. That's the thing. One of my favorite concepts from Western magic is this idea of true will.
yeah,
It's essentially this idea that there is a certain path that you take through life, a certain person, a certain being that you're here to become, to travel through life and become and flourish and flower into. That's your most aligned pathway.
yeah,
And the thing about true will is that creation is so diverse. And so we're trying to fit ourselves into all of these little boxes because that's what we're seeing out there. We're seeing all these pathways mirrored and all of this advice working for others, for working for 80%. And if you're in the 20%, or if you're the type of person that is on this path for whatever reason, that's aligning to your true will, and it's certainly something that I am and that I hold very steadily and that guides me in my work. And I share that with my mentoring clients and people in workshops, and they're like that as well. That's what one of their highest values as well. um, we need to almost go through the unsurety and the difficulties of creating anything, of writing our copy, of being an entrepreneur day to day. We need to go through all of that difficulties because not only is it making a business, it is making us. So we are becoming who we're meant to be purely via the tension and the challenging experiences we're having along the journey.
yeah,
And for all of us that are aligned with that, it's like, well, I asked a mentoring client this recently. She's trying to expand her business and be more visible and working out different ways that she can sell her wares and potentially, make some more money to, make the things that she really wants to make. And I just asked her if there was a way to mass produce this thing that's special to you, and you knew that you could sell a lot of it to have money coming in, would you do that? And she went, no. So there's something more important to
Yeah.
people like you and I, and to the people that we work with. There's something much more important, something much deeper. And I call that true will, and it could be Dharma. It could be, people have a million names for it.
Yeah.
But it's, we're not happy to um, like diverge or water down, or we're not here to take another path. We're here to take a path that is specifically sort of chosen for us, and it doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't just magically appear. Like, the process is the path, I
Mm.
guess, so to speak. So there's this element of being true to yourself, which doesn't always give you the direction, that doesn't always give you the advice, but you know a rough direction of where you're heading to. Yeah, so it's nice to have that idea. And I often say, do you want to like follow culture, or do you want to create it?
Yeah.
Like, I think we can all carve out a little piece of the cultural pie
Yeah.
for us to exist in. Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you know, Michelle, I disagree in a way, because I think it does give you the information, but you just have to be willing to look at it. And that's where the
Yeah.
distractions and all the avoidance comes in. I've distracted
Yeah.
myself for years avoiding the actual truth. In fact, really, I've had to have certain experiences so that this work can come alive. But um, we're almost at 50 years of avoiding what is natural and normal and what has always been so obvious, like so
So,
obvious that I'm supposed to be doing this. So
yeah.
obvious, Michelle. And so I think it is there, but we're conditioned along with our experiences to think that it's not enough, and it actually is. And it doesn't need to be
Yeah.
harder, or it doesn't need to be harder, but we make it so. And then there's the other part that um, when you are in the allowing, you can then think about leading. But I love what you were saying, that the we are people doing this kind of work are creating a new pathway for this world. So you can't look outside of yourself for the key, for the advice, for the way. You have to create the way. What does the world look like when it's operating? If this work was in the mass, it's not now, but if it was in the mass, what would that world look like? How would they be responding to the content that you're creating? How would they be responding to the interaction? And I challenge myself to think about that a lot. And it's hard. It's actually really hard, because you have to trust yourself. And as entrepreneurs, we're already fighting the day-to-day, as we've talked about many times throughout this podcast. This is just another one of that piece where you just have to trust yourself to carve out a completely new way. There is no one out there that can tell you how, but for the work that I do, I can show you where the pattern is that's creating more pressure, that's creating a block to the decisions and the opening of where you're getting caught, so that you can move forward in that leading. For you, it's with the design aspect. You're letting people know that you can see the truth of them, and then you're showing them how to express that out in the physical. So this work is a way for people to lean in. No matter what your business is, whether you're talking about nervous system, whether you've got a product or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Think about this new way. If you are creating this new pathway, this new way of communicating in the new world, in the utopia, what does that communication look like? How is that expressed? And do that, and be bold and be different. The thing that pisses us off as entrepreneurs the most is not feeling unique in the in the void out there. You know, we're looking the same as everyone else. You're not meant to be a cardboard cutout. We know that. But then
Yeah.
how are you creating this influence? And this is how you create change. This is how you create change in the world. And this is how we become a better society overall, because you are weaving your magic, your expression, your creativity, your knowledge in a way that is coded, and that's the word, coded uniquely for you. And the more we explore and express, and the more we come together and have these brilliant freaking conversations, and the more you connect with other like-minded people who understand you and get it, and you're not playing superficially, the better it is.
Absolutely. Yes, I love that. I love that. I often say every creative act is a vote for the future world that you want to live in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Michelle, thank you so much for being here. If this conversation has stirred something for you, follow it through. If there is so much in this podcast that will deepen your connection as an entrepreneur and as a leader, and absolutely lean into the creativity, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, a whole day, it doesn't matter. Lean into it when you're feeling stuck. And you can Michelle's contact details will be at the end in the description of this podcast, so feel free to reach out to her, explore her magic and the incredible branding and graphic design that she does. She's a good human. If that's not obvious in this podcast, I don't know what's going to help you understand that, but she's a gorgeous human being and one of my favorite people.
Thank you so much, Marianne. So good to chat to you.